Hello, my name's Ruth Gibbs and I'm a volunteer for Oxfam. I've been volunteering for Oxfam now for about 5 years. I used to be a geography school teacher and I was really interested in developing countries and developing studies. I travelled the world and I went to Asia, Latin America, Africa, and I saw firsthand the problems that people in developing countries are suffering. So I was keen to get involved in Oxfam's work. And I knew at school we'd been having school speakers from other charities. So I contacted Oxfam and asked them, I don't suppose you've got a speaker role available? And she said, actually, we're just starting up. So that's how it all started. And I really enjoy coming into different schools and community groups and talking about Oxfam's work. Now, my specialist topic today is going to be to talk to you about sustainable fashion. Now, a lot of people think, well, what's sustainable fashion got to do with Oxfam or with climate change? Well, it's got a lot to do with it. Oxfam have been involved in sustainable fashion since 1948, when we opened our first store. We've been trading in second-hand clothes since then and other items. We also have some new items in our stores today. But climate change is really affecting everything that we do now, because the people in the countries, the 90 countries around the world that we serve, are really suffering due to climate change. So every policy that we put in place now today considers climate change. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about climate change. And people think, well, what's fashion got to do with climate change? Well, it might surprise you to know that 1 out of 10 emissions from carbon are due to the fashion industry. These are quite shocking statistics, actually, really. But if you think about it, it's not surprising. For example, if you consider when we start growing some cotton, right through to when it gets to the factory, it's then processed into a t-shirt, say, it's then shipped over from India or Cambodia or Bangladesh, all the way to Britain. You consider the transportation, the lighting in store, us then going to buy it. That's a lot of carbon emissions. So I'm going to show you now a quiz to show you the problems associated with the fashion industry. So question 1, how much unused clothing hangs in our wardrobes in the UK? Is it £1 million worth, £200 million worth, or £30 billion worth? Now, depending on where you are, you might want to just shout at the screen or put the video on hold and I'll tell you the answers. It's £30 billion worth. £30 billion worth of unused clothes in our wardrobes. Number 2, what is the average lifespan of an item of clothing in the UK? Is it 8.3 years, 2.2 years, or 1.5 years? So the answer is just 2.2 years until we get rid of it. How many tons of clothing goes into landfill each year? When you consider a fully grown bear weighs about 1 ton. Is it 50,000 tons, 350,000 tons, or 800,000 tons? And the answer is 350,000 tons, and that's just for the UK. Number 4, how polluting is the fast fashion industry compared to other industries? Is it A, the second most polluting, B, the 22nd most polluting, or C, the 202nd most polluting? Now, it might surprise you to know it is the second most polluting industry, and that's after the oil industry. If you consider all the dyes, all the water used, all the fertilizers for all the cotton, plus the transportation, the carbon emissions that we've been talking about already. What percentage of clothes are actually truly recycled? Is it 40%, 20%, or 1%. And sadly, it's just 1%. And part of the problem is obviously people throwing away their clothes. That's the major problem. But another problem is that many of the clothes are not easily recyclable because they contain a lot of plastics, things like polyester, nylon, rayon, these type of things. And they contain a combination. And finally, number 6, how many children are working in the clothing industry worldwide? Is it 170,000 children? Is it 17 million children or 170 million children? And I'm very sad to say it's 170 million children. Now, there shouldn't be any children working, and many adults who are working are not paid a living wage, enough to sustain their family. And this is all in part to us wanting, our desire for cheap clothes. So, why is it that we need all of these cheap clothes? Why is it that we constantly want to buy so many clothes? Well, part of it is the adverts. You know, if you go on to social media sites, the internet, there's loads of adverts along the side with the latest trends, really tries to entice us to buy more. When we go to shops, we go shopping, you see the glitzy displays in the window of the latest lines. You think, oh my gosh, look at those nice new things. Let's go in. And before you know it, you're buying some more clothes. Also, there are so many lines now. In the past, there only used to be 4 different lines for each of the seasons, but now there are up to 52 lines, one for each week. So when you bought some clothes last week, you go in store, there's new things this week, and you can't get any of the other things that you had last week. And it's incredible, the fast pace of the fast fashion industry now. But what about the future? This just feels wrong. What about all the other countries? You know, there's America, there's Canada, there's other European countries, but what about all the developing world when they get involved in all of this too? Where is this going to end? An Oxfam survey found that half of all adults had no idea that the fashion industry was so bad for the environment. Sadly, 1 in 10 said they weren't bothered, but a third of people said once they knew the information that they were keen to make a change. Now, I feel passionately that this starts with you. We need to change our habits. Now, one of the things that we've started, which is really exciting and has shown a marked decline in the number of items bought, is Secondhand September. And this is when each year we advertise, usually in our shops, but this year much more online, about how you can challenge yourself to not buy new this September. So what that might mean is that you buy some second-hand things. You might go to an Oxfam shop or other charity shops. You might go onto the Oxfam online shop. You might go to the social media sites where lots of them now have marketplaces where you can buy secondhand. Now, I bought this nice coat on the Oxfam online shop, and I first of all thought, right, I need a new winter coat because I'd lost my other one. So I went to the high street and I saw a well-known chain, and I went in and there was a coat for £30. And I thought, oh, this is okay. It's not that well made. It looks like it might fall apart quite quickly. And it's quite trendy. Is it going to decline quickly and I'm going to get bored of it? So I thought, no, I'm going to go on the Oxfam online shop. So I typed in Oxfam online shop, came up. I put in coat size 12, about 800 came up. And I decided to buy this one here. It also cost £30, the same as the one that I could have bought in the high street, but this one is much better made, it's much better quality, it's nicely lined, it doesn't look like it's going to fall apart quickly, and delivery was £3.95 and there were free returns. So you could get on there designer clothes for high street prices. Another thing that you can do is to donate your used stuff. And as I said, a huge quantity is going into landfill. People are just throwing them directly away. Even things that are broken, they're just, binning it. Now, we have the fantastic Waste Saver in Yorkshire, where clothes that we haven't been able to sell go straight there. They're then hand sorted, and some of them might go off to specialist stores or perhaps off to the festivals. Things that can't be used are sent directly to the rag trade, and we organise all that ourselves, so then the money comes directly to us. Things that really cannot be recycled in the rag trade are then taken to an eco plant where they are made into energy. So 0% of any donations donated to Oxfam go to landfill. You could also resell your own stuff. So on Marketplace, on lots of the social media sites, you can easily resell your things. That gives it a second life, it stops it going to landfill, and perhaps encourages other people to buy secondhand rather than going and buying something new. Another thing that you can do is to buy fewer items. Now, perhaps you could have a budget in your mind, and instead of buying 10 items for that budget, perhaps buy 1 or 2. Now, I've got a dress here that I bought 6 years ago, and I've worn it many, many times, and I don't get bored of it, and it doesn't seem to go out of fashion. So it's more of a classic piece. And the quality is much better. It hasn't fallen apart at all, and I've been wearing it for 6 years. So that's much more than the average 2.2. Another thing you can do is, which is a growing trend at the moment, is to upcycle your clothes. Now, this is an example of upcycling. It's a flag that we use for Secondhand September, and it's all made out of t-shirts. So it says, "Say no to new." So the whole thing is made out of t-shirts. And this is a growing trend where we are making things out of old things. This is something we sell in the Oxfam shop. And this is made out of old saris, and it's a mat. I would suggest looking on YouTube. There are loads of ideas of how you could upcycle your jeans, upcycle your tops, create something new and exciting that's in line with modern trends, but that you're saving on landfill and you're saving on buying new. Another thing you can do is make something new out of your t-shirt. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration of how to make a t-shirt into a bag. Now, I would recommend looking at a proper video on YouTube, but I'll show you just a quick rundown of how to do it. So the first thing is to put your t-shirt inside out, and then it's to cut off the sleeves like that, and then to do a nice round section around the collar like that. And then to cut 10cm strips down the bottom. Then you're going to tie these strips. So you put the one aside, and then you tie each of the strips to each other, like that, all the way along. I'm using a different t-shirt now. So once you've done that, you would then tie each of these ones to each other to get a much more sturdy bottom. And then at each end, for added security, do a double knot in each of the end ones. And finally, you put it round the right way again so that you can have your t-shirt design on the outside if you want it there. You have a nice little tote bag. Now, if you've got a really nice t-shirt, there's nothing wrong with it, but you just don't fancy it anymore, then this is a great way of adding life to your t-shirts so that they don't end up in landfill, they don't end up needing to be recycled or sent off to a charity shop or resold. They can have a little bit of an extra life. Another thing you can do is look for more sustainable brands. So lots of brands now are eco out there. Have a good research and find some. Even in some of the high street brands now, they are doing some work on trying to be more sustainable. So have a look at the about or the eco credentials, the sustainability, but be careful because a lot of them claim to be doing something more environmentally friendly when they're just using quite a lot of fancy vocabulary, and it's a bit dubious as to whether they're actually doing much. So those are things that you can look into a little bit more. There are also some new fabrics out there. There are new experiments with using rubber from old tyres, from pineapple skins. All sorts of new developments are happening, but they require our support to really take off. So if there was one thing that I could change, if I told you one thing to change, what would it be? And I think it would be when you go into store and you see some cheap items, just to stop and to think, do I really need this? Is this going to have a detrimental effect on the environment? Is this having a detrimental effect on the people who produce this? Am I going to get bored of this in a really short time? Is this going to fall apart because it's not really well made? And to really think about the choices that we're making. Cheap fashion really is having a very serious impact on climate and on our environment in general. Our fashion choices are contributing to climate change. The fashion brands will listen if you act with your purse. If you refuse to buy these things, then they will start to think, okay, I need to make a change. We need to start becoming more sustainable. And we've seen this with plastic, not at the moment during coronavirus, but before that kicked off, we were really seeing huge pressure from consumers to reduce the amount of plastic, and companies and the government were changing policy. It can happen for fashion too. I'm now going to show you a video, an Oxfam video from our CEO that recaps quite a few of the things that I've just been talking to you about today.
Why is Oxfam raising awareness about sustainable fashion? I think it's critical that Oxfam does more on sustainable fashion. We know that 8% of all greenhouse gas emissions comes from the textile industry. That's more than shipping and aviation combined. We also know that the poorest people on the planet, who did the least to cause climate change, are being affected the most through droughts, through floods. And we also know that fast fashion thrives on low prices, and that usually involves low wages, especially for women. I'm here at our Waste Saver facility in Yorkshire, where Oxfam sorts through thousands of tons of donated items to make sure that each one finds an appropriate home. We are proud that no item of clothing donated to us finds its way to landfill. Whenever you donate or buy through an Oxfam shop, you're helping to protect the planet by giving clothes a second lease of life. Just the money raised from one dress could help us buy drought-resistant seeds for people in Zimbabwe and help them to keep growing food despite the impacts of climate change. During Secondhand September, we challenge you to only buy second-hand goods. I've made a start. Here's a fabulous blazer that I picked up at the Oxfam online store. So come to Oxfam shops or to other second-hand retailers, and let's try to reduce the impact that fashion is making on our planet and our people.
So I think that video from our CEO really sums up some of the things that Oxfam is doing to try and combat climate change and to try and make fashion more sustainable. So finally, in the next 10 years, what do I see happening? What I would like to happen is that consumers like you make a change. we start to think more about the choices that we're making and act with our wallet, and that the fashion industry listens and makes a change so that fashion can become much more sustainable and help our climate and our environment. Not to mention the people who produce our food, our clothes. This change really starts with you. So try and act today. See how you can make a more sustainable contribution when you are buying your clothes from today and onwards. Thank you for listening.